Level up your LA Kings experience with the new Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access. Enjoy great seats to the game along with premier dining inside the Lexus Club with all-you-can-eat food and non-alcoholic beverages. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings item and parking with your purchase. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn rewards on each purchase from the only ticket company that rewards you for buying. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings.
You're listening to an LA Kings podcast. For more episodes of this and every other Kings program, visit lakings.com/podcast.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
All right, it is Monday morning. That means it's time to crown a King of the Week. It is the second to last week of the season. And so joining me to do that this week, the Bannermen, Vardy and Karo. What's going on, Vardy?
Hey. Nice to see you, man.
How you doing, Karo?
Very well. Glad to be back on. Glad to see you. Glad you're back in general. I'm a glad guy today, I guess.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad you're glad. I was a little nervous, I'm not going to lie, when the first game of the week went the way it did. Because... Sure. As I've said to a number of guests over the last few weeks, I always feel bad when I ask people on, and I ask them on way before the games have been played. And then if it's a tough week with nothing to talk about, then even though it's not my fault, I just feel like, oh no, I've had them on, and now that the team went 0-4 and they got shut out twice, and like, what on earth do we talk about? But they've rebounded pretty well, I feel, for the next two games. And there were some non-Kings roster topics that we can touch on. I'm sure we will. Plenty to talk about this week. So let's dive into it. You guys know the format. You guys know the drill. I'm not going to do what I did with Hockey Royalty last week and force you guys to come to a consensus on your picks. So we'll start with you, Karo. Who's your honorable mention this week?
Damn it! I was hoping it was.
We can start with Vardy.
No. It's okay. No, this is fun. It's a roll of dice.
No one takes these backsies.
So obvious. There's some obvious honorable mentions, like you mentioned, Jesse, outside of the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sticking to main roster because he's my boy, and it's Kevin Fiala. Honorable mention for this week. 4 goals in his last 2 games. He didn't score against Seattle. 34 on the year. That's a career high. 3 of his goals on the power play. And outside of the non-main roster guys, Andrei Kuzmenko is always floating around. He is also now the apple of my eye, by the way, for everyone wondering. But for Fiala, probably playing the best hockey of his career in terms of being a complete player, someone that the Kings seemingly can trust now, not to hurt you and only help you. And I think I got to mention Kuzmenko a little bit. I think Kuzmenko has probably had an impact on Fiala as well. They're not on the same line, certainly, but they are on the power play together. But I think just seeing Kuzmenko's confidence has somehow made Fiala even more confident. And for a team starving for power play success, Fiala has been pretty much the bright spot for the balance of the season, even though Kuzmenko is now giving him a run for his money. So I'm going my boy Kevin, honorable mention.
So I want to touch on Fiala real quick because this is a conversation that I had on a Kings message board earlier today. And a poster who is a very big Kings fan who frequently engages in disagreements with the more negative portion of the fan base thought he was being clever and said something along the lines of, how many of you had Fiala written off at the halfway mark? I'll wait. And I just replied, well, I did.
I didn't.
No, I know you didn't. But I just wanted to say, like, for anybody, who thinks that everything I say publicly reflects my true feelings, like, it does not, just for the record. Or not always. My position has always been, I will find ways to say diplomatically what I think, and I'm not going to lie, but I'm also not an idiot. So I'm not going to, go on long rants about what I feel. But yeah, I was incredibly concerned about Fiala at the halfway mark. And the guy asked me if I can pull the stats of how many points Fiala scored in the first half as compared to the second. So I did it. And I understand that this has nothing to do with just this week, but I thought it was interesting, and you brought it up, Karo. So let's
you
do
never
it.
have to apologize to talk about Kevin Fiala. You know this.
I know,
not never.
I know, But in the first 40 games of the season, Kevin Fiala only played 39. I don't remember exactly when the iPod alarm issue was, but I'm virtually positive that explains why he missed one game in the first 40.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He had 14 goals, 8 assists, 22 points, and was a -10. It's not terrible, but it's not,
for his standards, it's not great.
Yeah, and that, and I would argue that he, for whatever reason, he and Deneau and Moore didn't work together this season as well as they did last season. And I know that there's a lot of people who've complained about the offensive output of that line, and I think a lot of it can be tied to, for whatever reason, that line just didn't work this year. Meanwhile, in the second 39 games, he has 20 goals, 14 assists, 34 points, and is a +6. He leads the team in points over those 39 games. He is first with 4 game-winning goals. He's first with 8 power play goals, and he's first with 122 shots on goal. So the idea that somehow he didn't struggle in the first half of the season and he hasn't been incredibly better in the second half of the season, get out of here. He's been way better in the second half of the season, and good. He needs to be, especially in the playoffs. So I sort of knew you guys one of you would pick him somewhere.
Just got it out of the way early. You know what I'm saying? Just get it out of the way. It's
guaranteed. If you have us on the show, he can go over -4, and we'll find a way. And
so I had those
he was
stats.
Skating so nice.
I had that prepped and ready to go because I felt like it was worth pointing out because you two were privy to my concerns about Kevin Fiala at points early in the season.
And what did we tell you? What did we tell you?
Yeah.
What did we say?
Listen, I talked about it. Sorry, go ahead, Karo.
I was going to say completely valid concerns because we were concerned too. Like, as much, you can only defend a player to a point, right? Like, and we were almost at that point, but luckily he didn't let us go there. But yeah, it was concerning in the first half.
Well, and I talked about the difference between optimism and hope on the last episode of King's Talk. And I sort of said, like, listen, optimism is the domain of the idiot. Like, anybody can be optimistic. You just wake up one day and you go, it's all going to be fine. I'm going to be optimistic about it. You go, okay, great. Cool. Confidence comes from observation and reflection. And I was not confident that certain players would turn it around at the halfway mark. Those who were optimistic about it, okay, great. But don't get snarky with me about it now, because things change and they change fast in the NHL, and guys drop off cliffs, right? Guys disappear, and vice versa. Guys that you've never heard of turn around. Like when they got Trevor Moore in that trade, did anybody think that he'd be a 30-goal scorer, an important part of this franchise? I didn't. Thought he was a throw-in, but nope, here he is. Now he matters. So stuff changes, and anyway, a lot of talking to say nothing. So Vardy,
no, if I can just add, just before I think you can also track his second half improvement with exactly like you mentioned. It was just finding the right fit for him. I think we just kept seeing a lot of that in the first half of the season, which is kind of funny. If you look back the last 2 seasons, it's always just kind of been like, where does Kevin Fiala fit on this team?
Right.
Who does he fit with? How does he fit with? And I remember in the preseason, the discussion was that the line was going to be Fiala, Byfield, and Foegele. And I think they tried that briefly, and it wasn't quite working. And it took a little bit of experimentation to come up with the lines as they are right now. And you saw Fiala do better in the second half. You saw Byfield certainly have a much better second half. And, Laferriere was struggling a little bit in the middle, but his season's been incredibly successful too, I think. So it's a little bit of line balancing, I think, and it's led to a lot of improvement across the board, in my opinion.
Yeah. He had a good week. There's just 3 people, in my opinion, that had better weeks.
So a lot of people had good weeks.
Your honorable mention, Vardy.
Man, I might have an honor roll on this one.
All right.
Just again for some of those things, and I'm going to throw names out because I feel pretty confident, Jesse, that at least one of these guys is going to get some flowers from you. But certainly, if you haven't been tracking what Hampton Slukinski and Carter George have been doing this week, man, I don't know what you've been doing because they've been blowing the doors off the thing. I think Fiala could have gotten an honorable mention. I can't believe Kuzmenko's got 5 points, and I'm sitting here wondering if he should have been honorable mention. But I'm going to go with Adrian Kempe. And I'm gonna, and I'll tell you why. Because I know you've got a rule of if you've played in your first game, you should get some flowers. If you score your first goal, you should get some flowers. If you leave a game because you're having your first kid, and then you come back the next game and you have 3 assists, and then you add on 1 more assist for 4 points in a week when you just had your first child, you're getting an honorable mention from me at the very least.
All right. That's fair. And I do want to talk about Slukinski and George real quick. For those who don't know, Hampton Slukinski won, well, not by himself, but he was the starting goalie for the Western Michigan Broncos, I believe they're called.
That's right.
And they won
Straight
the national
out of Kalamazoo, baby.
Yeah, won the national championship for the first time in that school's history. It is the second year in a row that Hampton Slukinski has ended the season winning a championship for the team that he is on. I think he's 19
Fargo
years
Force
old.
last year.
Yes, he's 19 years old. He wins everywhere he goes. He's incredible. And the only reason that he isn't dominating without question the conversation about the future of Kings goaltending is because Carter George is 18 years old and is also incredible. Carter George plays in the Canadian Hockey League and the Ontario Hockey League, so he doesn't have an opportunity to win an NCAA title, and his team got beaten in the first round of the OHL playoffs by the London Knights. But Carter George made his professional debut for the Ontario Reign and stopped 33 shots. And I got to tell you, yesterday was the most non-NHL hockey I've ever watched in a single day.
Pretty great.
I watched the game with Slukinski, and then I flipped over and watched the game with Carter George, as much of each of them as I could get. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay for Flow Hockey, so
yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it was a shutout, by the way, for George.
Yes, yeah. 4-0 and against Askarov too, which doesn't matter because it's not like they're taking shots on each other, but it's nice. It's a nice detail. And as long as we're talking about goaltenders, Darcy Kemper almost scored a goalie goal.
Oh, man,
and had a 30-win season, which hasn't happened for this team since 17-18. I had to look that up to remind myself.
Just to be clear, 2017, 2018, not 200 years ago.
Correct.
Yes. Or 300 years ago, I guess.
Yes.
That should have, if he scored that, he locks the Vezina, right?
I mean, I just can't believe, I said this on Twitter, I just can't believe we literally had a goalie fight and a goalie goal come like just inches away for both. And no.
I know.
That's the
goalie version of a Gordie
It gives you
Howe
something to
hat-trick.
look forward to for next year, at least. That's what this is.
I mean, I still maintain, and it's too late for Kings fans, but I still maintain that if Jonathan Quick retires and never is involved in a goalie fight, we were all robbed. And
that's fair. That's very fair.
But what's crazy is he never got as close as Kemper did.
No, right. Well, even Copley got
part.
closer, I think. Although there was that, wasn't there that game against Chicago where
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm blanking on the goaltender.
Corey Crawford.
Yeah, came out.
They bumped chests.
They looked at each other and it was like, oh, is this going to be this? Is this going to be the thing? I always figured Quick would get in a fight with a skater, not with the other goalie.
I mean, he certainly blocker punched enough guys.
That's
to spark one.
Specifically Corey
Perry. Yeah.
Yes.
But I just figured eventually somebody would get in his kitchen and he'd just lose it and say, you know what, enough is enough. Like this is. I've stood all I can't stand no more. But it hasn't happened yet. I don't want to say it's never happened, but it hasn't happened.
Well, he's not retiring anytime soon, so
no. My honorable mention, however, is Andrei Kuzmenko.
Yes,
and he
here for it.
Only, I use very aggressive air quotes, only had 5 points. All of them were assists, but at this point, he was a +2. I guess shots on goal or not. Oh no, here it is. No shots on goal, which is hilarious to me.
Not needed.
No, they really aren't. But there's something about him, and I talked about this on King's Talk. His presence in the lineup, and I confidence is fine, but confidence is unmeasurable. I guess what I'm about to talk to is unmeasurable too. But because he's in the lineup, and not just in the lineup, but we're at a point now where it's like every night, it's like, oh, another 2 points from Kuzmenko. Oh, ho hum. Like, okay,
yeah,
whatever. End of the first period, Kuzmenko's got 2 points already. Cool. There's something about that then, like I was asking on King's Talk, I dared people to call in, and I'll give you guys the same challenge. you tell me, who's the Kings' number one offensive line right now?
Yeah, not easy.
It flip-flops. I mean, I don't know.
Depends on the game. Sometimes depends on the period.
I mean, like, Kopitar's line will play more minutes, probably. But you can't make a compelling argument to convince me that the Byfield, Fiala, Laferriere line isn't just as dangerous, because over the last, what is the stat I saw today? Over the last 30 games, Byfield leads the team in points. I read you the stats on Fiala for the second half of the season. Like, I don't know. And when you have those two lines that can both play, and it's not as if they mimic each other's style either. Then now all of a sudden you are creating matchup problems. And listen, Andrei Kuzmenko, and when they got Andrei Kuzmenko, and I'm trying real hard not to fall in love with this guy just because
it's hard.
Let it happen. Let it happen.
Hard. Well, I've been hurt.
What does your heart
times.
want, Jesse? What does your heart want?
I mean, listen, my heart doesn't get what it wants, unfortunately. 2025 is not a year for my heart to get what it wants.
Oh, buddy.
But when they got him, I forgot he existed when they acquired him. I remember him in Vancouver. I remember the trade to Calgary. And then I sort of lost track of him in Calgary, was not aware that he'd been traded to Philadelphia. And when I saw the notification that was like Kings trade, there had been a trade earlier where the Kings had acquired, I'm going to butcher the name. I am definitely not going to pronounce this correctly, but a defenseman, Joseph Caccioni. I don't remember, but it was a trade. Sure. It was an AHL trade.
Yeah.
And it was the forward whose name escapes me at the moment that they got in the Tyler Madden. But I got the email, and I think I was in the hospital when the trade happened, or maybe I was dealing with doctor stuff, but it was like trade. And I was like, oh, like pause, health problems. There's a Kings trade. And it was like, oh, that was an AHL trade. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So then when I saw the notification for another one, I was like, okay, this will probably be yet another sort of random AHL player for other AHL player. And it was like, nope, 3rd round pick for Andrei Kuzmenko. And I was like, well, okay, he's a right shot forward, and it'll quiet everybody down for a day or two. And who knows how it'll go. And he's been incredible. I mean, and he just keeps getting better. And I legitimately asked, I don't remember which pass it was that he made, but I was just like, listen, is this guy better at passing or shooting? Because when he shoots the puck and he drills those lasers from 20 feet out, it's incredible. And then when he wires those passes to whoever he's wiring them to, those are incredible. And I just don't know what he's
I think he's got a little bit of that Kevin Fiala to him, where his passes are just as hard as his shots sometimes.
I think his passes are better than Fiala.
100%.
No. Personally,
no. Better playmaker.
No.
Yeah,
you're twisting my words. I didn't say he's
sorry
playmakes like that. I just meant that the velocity on his passes, in terms of how hard the passes are and how they come off the way that Kevin Fiala sends his passes, where they're with intent. You know what I mean?
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I just thought
he's
just
having an epiphany, guys.
The thought just occurred to me. I don't know if you guys can see the mix of horror and excitement on my face.
I was wondering what that was.
There's a black light bulb above you. What does that mean?
I think he's just a better version of Arvidsson.
I think that's a great one, actually.
That's good. I'll take that.
That's a very good comparison, Jesse. And I know someone had written to you on Twitter that he's like a mix of Fiala and Arvidsson, but to me, I agree with you. He's just an upgraded version of Arvidsson. In terms of the question, shot or shooting or passing, I think he's a better playmaker, man. Like, it's just, at least the stuff he does is more sensational when he's passing. He just the look-offs he does. Last game, he did that look-off pass to Byfield where Kopitar didn't score on the doorstep. If you guys remember, on the backdoor, that pass was insane, dude. He fooled me at home, and he almost fooled the camera guy. I think he was starting to pan the other way. Just his playmaking ability and the way he sees the ice, I think that's his biggest strength.
I'm going to make another comparison, and it's blasphemous, and I apologize in advance. When I was, I don't know, in my early teens, and the Kings had Wayne Gretzky and Jari Kurri, I can remember moments where Wayne Gretzky would make a pass, and I would be in the process of thinking to myself, what are you doing?
Yes.
And before I finished the thought, Jari Kurri would have blasted the puck home for a goal. and I'd go, oh, you're an idiot. Shut up. The pass that he made to Byfield for the goal against Colorado.
The slot pass where he kind of came down the right wing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those passes where if you weren't paying attention to Byfield, and why would you be? Kuzmenko was leading the rush and had the puck. All of a sudden, he just does a drop pass into the middle of into nowhere, and it's in the back of the net.
Instinctual passes, man. Yeah. That's a guy who just trusts that his players are going to be where they need to be.
Yeah,
I realize that a lot of these passes are like dimes, absolute dimes, but passes like that, the one that he just gave to Byfield on that play you're talking about, that's an instinctual play. That's if my guys are doing the right thing, this is where they should be. I'm going to put the pass there. And to your point, of those 5 assists that he has, 4 of them were primary assists and 3 of them were power play assists.
Yeah.
It's also a fearlessness. Like there's a fearlessness to his game, not like in the traditional hockey sense, like Dustin Brown was a fearless player. When he has the puck, there's absolutely no fear in this guy. A fear of making a mistake, fear of making the wrong play. It seems like he just completely believes every decision he makes with the puck is the correct one.
I wonder, and I don't have an answer for this, just a thought that occurred to me. I wonder what the turnover rate on bad passes is for that kind of pass versus if you try and skip the puck back up the wall to a D-man who's covered and it just like leaves the zone. And now all of a sudden, if the guy covering the blue line has an extra stride, boom, it's or if you turn it over in the middle of the blue line on the power play and all of a sudden the other team's off and running. If you're Kuzmenko and you're trying these passes and it doesn't land, I've never once felt like you go, oh no.
Yeah.
It's off, now it's just going to disappear into open ice and it becomes a race to the puck. And like his I know this isn't this past week and now we're just gushing about Kuzmenko, but that pass he made to Fiala for the tip-in goal where he just basically bounced it off Fiala's stick. Like, yeah, if that pass doesn't connect, so what?
Right.
If the pass he made to Byfield for the slot goal on the power play against
Anaheim.
Yes, thank you. I forgot who they played this week.
Yeah.
If that pass doesn't connect or if Byfield whiffs on it or whatever, okay, you still have, 80 feet of zone for the puck to stay in, and there's other players. So I don't know.
I think again, the passes, the fearlessness with these passes is also because the passes are so unpredictable that I don't think defenders are really in a position to pick them off and turn it around and go the other way. Like that's the deception to his game. I think that's what they wanted for him. I have to believe that the pro scouts who kind of followed him from Calgary to Philly and were like, no, there's something here that we can work with, primarily saw right shot forward with deception to his game to help us open up the offense, because that's what the Kings were lacking, particularly in the power play.
But he can also wire a friggin' shot, right? Like the goal he scored last week, I don't remember who it was against, but where he's coming down the right-hand side and he just wired it from the top of the face-off circle.
Right.
That's where the Arvidsson comparison comes in, right? Because if he's not prepared to make those shots and to make them count, then 2 games, 3 games later, when he's doing the exact same thing, but instead of shooting it, he takes an extra 5 steps and drop passes it back to Byfield, who scores.
Right.
Anyway, so I like Kuzmenko very much. So he's my honorable mention. And I hope
we're flying through these
talking about the honorable mention.
I hope that he's not higher up on your guys' list, because then we're gonna have to talk about him all over again. So Karo, back to you for runner-up.
Okay. My runner-up is Alex Laferriere.
Okay.
2 goals, 3 assists. And his 9 shots led all forwards. He also had 8 hits. That was only second to Sammy Helenius. I think it's fair to say he's comfortably off the schneid now. And in the spirit of kind of ramping up your game as the playoffs approach, you got to be really happy with Alex Laferriere and what he's done. And he's impacting the game everywhere. His defensive play is so underrated, and we saw it, I think, on forget which game, forgive me, but he had an incredible back check that took it the other way. And his line, we've talked about the line a little bit, but against Colorado, they were the best line in terms of shot attempts for and against. So glad to see him score. I hope he gets to 20. We got a little bit of time here. He is my runner-up.
Vardy, he's just going to spoil it. He's mine as well. So before I start talking about him too much, Vardy.
Me too.
Oh, perfect.
No,
all right, great. So
we
can just talk about Leferrier the whole time. All right, great.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, it's all the things that Karo mentioned, and I think just again for a guy who is in his second season, and look, I was personally kind of hard on him for his first season. I realized a lot of that was also him playing with Dubois, and I was kind of going back and forth as to which one of them was failing the other a little bit. But I think his game is very different. There's just a lot more confidence and a little snarl to it, and a little bit of like he just complements those two guys on that line so well. I think every one of those three guys is willing to take a hit. Fiala certainly, despite his size, is willing to kind of fight through checks. I think Leferrier is a little bit bigger, is able to do all those things. He's comfortable being the setup man. He's comfortable being the guy who finishes. And he's just a good, solid, all-around 200-foot player. He's such a prototypical Kings player. Honest to God, he is. He's just like, you can name 5 other guys who've been exactly like him and have thrived in this system. Probably most recently, Iafallo comes to mind, I guess.
Fogel.
A guy like him. Fogel. There, just name a guy.
For anybody who's played the NHL series on EA Sports, you know that there's the different styles of players, and there have been. I can't remember what year they introduced the style matching system, but if you get the right kinds of combos of, you get a playmaker, a power forward, and a sniper. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Then you get a +5 bonus to all your guys, or whatever. Leferrier, Byfield, and Fiala in video game terms should, not that they are a sniper, a playmaker, and a power forward, but I mean, I suppose Byfield, I guess he's not really a playmaker so much as he's a 200-foot, he's a two-way forward, I guess.
I think he's power forward-ish.
Well, that's the great thing about Byfield, is that he's a little bit of everything.
Sure.
And you can get him to be whatever you need him to be. So like for the first, I don't know, 80% of his career, all of his goals came from 6 inches away from the net. And now he's blasting them from 20 feet out with some regularity.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also big and fast, and he can win board battles. We've seen him, he's on the penalty kill. He's playing defensively. And Leferrier, you pointed the stat out, Karo, about 8 hits. That's for your second line that has 2 guys on it that are putting up points at remarkable rates. And now Leferrier is obviously collecting points as well. I think he had, 5 points this week?
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Pretty good week for the kid. And, +3. And I don't know if you guys heard, I can't remember if I texted you or not, my plus-minus comparison.
Yeah, we got that.
Yeah.
We got that.
Sorry, I've totally lost track of who I've said what to over the last 2 weeks. But yeah, and the fact that he's a right-handed shot, which theoretically shouldn't matter, especially when we're just talking about 1 week. But for a long time since they put that line together, and I've had these conversations with people, and I think Jim Hiller even referenced it, they'd say, Leferrier is the guy, the glue guy, the guy that goes in the corners, the puck retriever, the whatever, the mucker, the grinder, the guy that does the dirty work on that line. And I go, yeah, I'm not saying he's not. It's very difficult for me watching the game at home to see all the little work that he puts in, because the camera's not on him, the camera's on the puck. And so you miss some of that. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know. I hear people talking about him as if he fits that role to a T, but I just don't really. It's hard to sort of like emotionally connect to the truth of that statement. I'm seeing it the last couple of weeks, and the last games in particular. There was that goal was it against Colorado, where the puck came out of the corner? Not Leferrier's goal, but I think one of his assists.
Trying to remember.
I think it was.
There was
Colorado.
a lot of goals this
week. It might have been Anaheim. It might have been Colorado. I don't remember. But it was like Byfield and he were in the corner. We're doing, dirty work, and Fiala was floating around.
Right,
Fiala. Not floating around, but he was out being dangerous in front. And you just go like, yeah, okay, I see it now. I'm starting to see it on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
And I also want to mention, Jesse, his shot has improved. At least the accuracy of it has improved so much. You look at that goal that he scored against Colorado from Clark, Last year, he probably rips that 5 feet wide, or maybe I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. Like he clearly identified something that wasn't working last year, because for whatever we want to say, like Pierre-Luc Dubois did find him a few times at least last season for good looks, and it just wasn't converting. This year, I think much more comfortable, especially on the one-timer. So good on him.
So the goal he scored from Clark, they showed the replay on the telecast. And by the time, I mean, listen, I understand that in one-timers, you have to already be shooting the puck before the puck gets to you. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Otherwise, it's not a one-timer. But his stick was already bowed, right? His stick was already his stick was already in the crescent mode, right? It had already hit the ground and torqued up and was ready to release and snap when the puck arrived, which again is what makes it a one-timer. But I would love to know season by season, because people talk about, did Byfield switch sticks? Is it longer? Is it shorter? I don't know. Did Laferriere just get a stick with more flex to it? I have no idea, because that thing was a scythe. But yeah, so Laferriere, we all agree there. So okay, so then I don't need to talk about Laferriere because we did. He's my runner-up as well. That brings us to the King of the Week. I hope we're all in agreement.
I don't see how we can't be.
Yeah, so Karo, we'll start with you.
This should be a clean sweep, I believe. Quentin Byfield, King of the Week.
All right.
3 goals, 3 assists, +2. Against Colorado, 78% in the dot. Mm-hmm. That is something. 58% against Anaheim, so that's nothing to sneeze at either. I know we're all going to
58% on the season.
Yeah, I know
would probably be the best face-off record in the league. So
correct, but we put it next to 78. It's like, what happened, Quentin?
Right, sure,
yeah. Colorado, by the way, wasn't playing McKinnon, but Brock Nelson and Nietzsche were still there, I believe. Yeah. So it wasn't like. Anyway, go on.
I will say about Byfield, he went on that 3-game pointless streak. It was like earlier in March, I believe, and I started to be a little worried, because I know, Jesse, we've all discussed this. Like it's got to be a long stretch of time of consistency for him for us to be really comfortable with putting the crown on him, so to speak. So I was a little worried, but man, like he's turned it on again since that 3-game pointless streak. He has 9 in 7, and just like Laferriere and just like almost the entire team heating up at the right time. It just seems like, we talk about the future with Byfield and the future this, the future that. It just seems like he's trying to prove that the future is now for him, and it couldn't come at a better time. Because I believe, and it's going to be the Oilers, we know this now, he might be the key in this series. If you would really break it down, is that second layer of scoring for the Kings that's really going to probably make or break this team at this point.
It's funny about the pointless streak. I've never understood. There's some players who get called streaky. People say, like, everybody knows Adrian Kempe's streaky, and I'm like, well, is he? I'm
not anymore.
I still don't quite know what that means. But there are some players who can't afford to be streaky. Like, I don't think people describe Warren Fogle as streaky, even though you look at his point totals and you go 43 in 79. He's clearly not scoring every game. And he has some games where that line is super effective. And so you're like, well, okay, why does that guy not get the label of streaky? But a guy like Fogle can afford to get 43 points in a season, and we'll all feel great about it. And we should, right? 43, that's fantastic. Quentin Byfield can't show up and put up 43 points. It can't happen.
Correct.
It just cannot happen. And even, I don't know what he's even at right now, so I don't want to say something wild. He's at 53. 50?
Yeah.
He's got to be a 60 point. Now, it probably won't happen this season, but c'est la vie. But, somebody said to me at some point, like, he will be the next Anze Kopitar. And no disrespect to Quentin Byfield at all when I say this. It's too late for him to be the next Kopitar. Like, Anze Kopitar showed up at 19, a fully finished product.
Yeah.
And hit the
68 points in his first season.
and his first game announced his presence with authority, right? Like, to steal a line from Bull Durham. Like, it's just too late. And it's fine. I don't need Quentin Byfield to be the next Anze Kopitar. I need Quentin Byfield to be the first Quentin Byfield.
Correct.
And we're starting to see him be that player. And he's not gonna be Kopitar, right? He's first of all, he's a different human being, and as Ted Lasso once told Coach Beard, all people are different people. But he's also like, okay, I get it. He's tall, he's a center, and he's good at playing defense also.
Right.
Okay, but he's just a totally different player.
Right.
I've never seen Anze Kopitar score while deflecting the puck with one hand on a stick and then swat in the rebound, on the same hand. I've never seen Anze Kopitar make a move like that move that Byfield made against Columbus. Like, Byfield does stuff that's crazy. And the fact that he can have a 6-point week like he did this week, 6 points in 3 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, +2, to your point, Karo, 56.8 in the circle, 1 power play goal, 2 power play points. We're saying that he's the king of the week, but I feel like most of the conversation during the games this week has been about Kevin Fiala or Andrei Kuzmenko or whoever, Darcy Kemper. I don't want to say that Quentin Byfield's doing it quietly, but he's kind of doing it quietly.
I think some of that's also a product of, again, when all these guys individually do well, right? You have Fiala having a good second half. You have Kemper having a great season. The Kings are not a one-man team. There's no one dude who's scoring 30 points more than anyone else. They're a really, really balanced team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think because of that, it can seem like he's doing it quietly. But that's just because he's kind of getting lost in the shuffle of how the entire team is doing. I think it'd be way different if he was just so far ahead of everyone else that you can't really acknowledge anyone else doing well. And that's not a knock on him. That's a strength of the team. That's how they exist. So if one guy's having a bad night, it's to your point. Like, who is the Kings' first line? Does it even matter? It doesn't. No. I don't think it does. And I kind of, I made a mention in the last episode we recorded that I was like, it's going to be a bit of a down year compared to last year for Quentin Byfield when it's all said and done. And damn it, if the guy isn't coming around now, and probably is going to tie, if not surpass, his point total from last year because his second half was so strong. So I think it's all going in the right direction. I think now he just has to show that he can do it in the playoffs. That's really where it's going to matter.
There are 2 players that I really want to see in the playoffs. Well, I guess 3. But the 2 skaters I really want to see in the playoffs are Byfield and Kuzmenko.
Yeah.
Because Byfield, all the evidence suggests that he's the type of player who raises his game when it matters. And we don't know about Kuzmenko because he's never played an NHL playoff game.
Right.
Could be. And if he is, I also, you know what? I'm just going to make the list longer and longer. I also want to see Warren Fogle in the playoffs because I think he could be, Chris Simon-esque.
Nice pull, buddy.
For those fans of a certain vintage.
Nice. How can I forget that hair?
Yeah, well, I just mean a guy who's in the regular season. You're like, okay, he's a nice player. I'm glad we have him.
Yeah,
sure.
And then in the playoffs, you're like, oh my god.
Claude Lemieux was the same way, man.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
He's very pedestrian or whatever. He played his role. Playoffs rolled around. This guy just became an animal.
Yeah. Well, right. And again, apologies to Ken Belkey from Sinbin, but NHL playoffs are actually a different sport from the regular season. It's a bummer because we spend all this time talking about the regular season and then it's over and you're like, okay, well, forget the last 6 months. This is a new season. To your point about the MVP though, or the balance, Farty, I had this conversation on Kings Talk and this is the first season that I can remember where I don't think this team has an MVP. Or let me rephrase that. This is the first time that this team has made the playoffs where I don't think the team has an MVP.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of seasons where the team stunk and you're like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, the team finished second to last and they drafted Drew Doughty. I don't care if Brian Wilsey or, whoever is the MVP. Like, it's not important. But for a playoff team, for a team that has over 100 points, has home ice in the playoffs as of tonight, I don't know that there is an MVP. Like,
it's certainly not
depends
easy.
on how you want to look at it, man.
Yeah.
It really does. It really depends on how you want to look at it. Do you, because there's a couple guys that I could make a very strong argument should be MVP, but then you can rebuttal with someone else, and I'd be like, damn, it's a real good argument. I have nothing to say about that.
I mean, I do the King of the Week points, which are arbitrary and silly, but at the same time super scientific and always correct. And Adrian Kempe, as of today's, I think this is correct. As of today, Adrian Kempe has 76 points. Quentin Byfield has 50. Darcy Kemper has 44. Anze Kopitar has 37. But if you look at the actual actual point totals,
right?
Anze Kopitar is 3 points behind Adrian Kempe. So,
yeah.
Are you going to tell me that Adrian Kempe is the best player on the team? Okay, but there's Anze Kopitar right behind him.
Right.
Sure. And MVP doesn't mean best player on the team, or doesn't equal to,
right.
So it's like Darcy Kemper is the first name that comes to my mind.
Right.
But if someone said, well, what about what Gavrikov did in the first half of the season? I'd be like,
continues to do.
Yeah.
I entertained the notion briefly about bringing him up for honorable mention because, let me just look it up real quick. If I'm not mistaken, I think Gavrikov was one of the only guys to not be on the ice for a goal against this week. Oh no, I take that back.
Really? Even against Colorado? Because Colorado scored a lot.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just even strength. Nope, Malott and Turcotte. And Turcotte only played one game.
Yeah.
Well, where did I see? Or maybe he just had a good plus minus. Maybe that's what it was.
Okay.
No.
Well, either way, I mean,
well, I don't know. I was thinking about Gavrikov for something, and now I can't remember what it was. But sorry, Gavrikov.
So can I ask you a question, Jesse? Because I brought this up with Karo, and I know this is your show, but I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to look at this team in totality, compared to the last 3 times they've gone up against the Oilers, do you feel like this is the best squad they've had, or the best chance they've had to beat the Oilers going up against them?
Those are two different things, though.
That's a fair point. Okay. Do you think this team as it's constructed,
unquestionably the best team in the last 4 years?
Okay.
And I think Edmonton is worse than they've been 100%. In the past 4 years, which ipso facto means that this is the best shot that the Kings have to defeat them. However, special teams are a thing that exist.
Yes.
And
do they?
Yeah, sadly. And unfortunately, through no fault of the Kings coaching staff, the players, the general manager, whatever, unfortunately, the Edmonton Oilers possess 2 players who are simply not fair to play against on the power play,
right?
Or 4-on-4. So you can't take penalties. Now, if I'm not mistaken, no, I think the Kings get the fewest power plays. It's not that they take the fewest.
Yeah, they've drawn the least.
Yeah, which is a shame. Not that their power play is great. It's not, but it's getting better. I don't love that we're experimenting with the power play in games 78 and 79. That's a little, or whatever game number we're on. Like, it's a little bit like, really? We haven't quite nailed down.
You don't think that's just a product of Doughty being out? I mean,
yeah, that's a part of it.
It would.
Either way, it's concerning. Like,
okay.
But I mean, you look at the power play history of the season, and I welcome it. I know it's concerning, but it's like, yeah, try that.
Because yes, really, I'm not. Listen, if it's not working, try anything, right? Whatever. Right. Like, put Hellenius, Malott, and Turcotte out there. I don't care. Like, sure. It's just, if I have to go down the list of things that I'm confident about and things that concern me at this point in the season, heading into the playoffs, probably a week from now, we'll probably be in the series.
Mm-hmm.
That's top of my list because, I guess Ekholm. I keep saying that's not his. Is that his name?
That's his name.
I don't know why. I have this voice in my head that's like, his name isn't Ekholm. It looks like I know. It looks like. Have I talked to you guys about the fact that I want to keep putting an extra syllable in Kuzmenko's name? By the way, is another
not directly, but I've heard enough.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Like Kuzmichenko. What did you want?
Kuzmanenko is the name that I keep wanting to, but it's not his name. So Ekholm might
him
to
be somehow Marchenko and
Kuzmenko. Listen, Marchenko's a hell of a player.
That's true.
But listen, Ekholm's out, so that's great. because the Oilers' defense and goaltending are obviously not as competitive as their forward core. They lost Broberg, Holloway, and Fogle and replaced them with Jeff Skinner, who is making the playoffs for the first time in his career,
15
I believe.
years.
Yeah.
Also, like Ryan McLeod has like 50 points this season, by the way, like randomly.
Yeah. So, I think, like I said, I think Edmonton, listen, if the Kings get home ice, then ipso facto, this is the best they've been in the 4 years. Right. My fear is just that all of a sudden it's last year where the special teams just.
I think that's everyone's fear, isn't it? Like that's what it comes down to.
It should be for anyone who was paying attention.
Yeah. Like the Kings' power play against Edmonton has been good in the playoffs, but.
Well, it was 2 years ago. Last year, I believe they were.
Oh yeah, they went over 0%.
So
that's right.
Not great.
I try to block that out. But my point is, like, even when it was good, it wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? Like
it was good, but they were better.
Right. That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that's just not, like I said, it's I hate to use the word fair, particularly applied to professional sports, because like it is what it is. There's no such thing as fair. But it would be really disappointing to have a great season, to get home ice, to play well against them 5-on-5, and just have McDavid and Draisaitl go, bonkers on the power play, and just for them to win another series that way, it'd be a real kick in the nards.
Yeah, that's the scary part. Is like one of the narratives is like, well, you can't take penalties, but you're gonna take penalties. It's not possible, and they don't need 5 chances to score 2 goals on the power play. So. When people say stay out of the box, it's like, dude, like, even if you give them 2 power plays, it could change the game. That's how effective they could be on the power play.
Now, the real question is, and I don't pretend to know enough about goalies, I didn't think there was anything wrong with Cam Talbot. I didn't think there was anything wrong with who did they get? Thank you. That's his name. Or Jonathan Quick in the previous 3 series. How wild is that, by the way, that those 3 series, 3 goals?
I know.
I didn't think, I don't know, maybe I'm a true believer, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm just an idiot about goaltending. I didn't think the goaltending let the team down particularly. I just think when you have those guys at some level, if they're going to go nuts and score 2 a game.
Yeah.
Not that it matters, but I think Korpisalo really broke down by like game 4 in that series. Now that's who's to say that the Oilers can't break down any goalie by game 4 of a series, right? So,
well, I think that's the difference in the playoffs, right? Like the strategizing becomes very different. You can pick apart. You only have to coach against one team, and when you have 6, 4, 5, whatever games it is, you can modify your strategy against this team. It's that chess match. It's the back and forth, and for the Kings, unfortunately, there has to be way more coaching involved to overcome than what the Oilers have to do. The Oilers don't have to coach anything. It's basically just give it to the 2 guys and let them do it. I mean, that's what the strategy is going to be, right?
That 7-game series aspect is one of the reasons that I'm very excited to see Kuzmenko in the playoffs, because we've seen what he can do in a single game against a single opponent. I want to see, let's say in game 1, he gets blanked and he's got nothing going. And for whatever reason, whoever's marking him, apologies for the soccer team, on Edmonton does a good job and shuts him down.
Yeah.
Is he the kind of guy who goes back and says, well, I'm just going to do it harder in game 2 and then just keeps running into the same brick wall? Or is he the kind of guy who goes, oh, okay,
right,
you figured out that, well, I'm going to try this. And we don't know because he's never been in the NHL playoffs before. So I don't know.
Yeah, and again, to your point, this is outside of, again, McDavid, Draisaitl, they are who they are. The supporting cast is the weakest it's been. Even their guys who previously had been doing really well, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, they're having down years. The guys that they picked up have not 1-for-1, not even close replaced to the guys that they lost. And they're having a ton of injuries to deal with at this point. It's the best shot they're going to have, man. It's the best shot they're going to have to get past these guys.
And listen, I don't want to get too optimistic about it. But
you shouldn't. You've seen nothing in the last 4 years should be making you feel optimistic about it.
But when a team goes to a championship and loses, in any sport,
Yeah.
there are sort of two narratives, and I'm not sure. I'm sure if one were to go out and sift through the statistics, this is probably demonstrably not true. But it feels to me like that team either comes back stronger and more determined than ever before, or they disappear off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Like the 2006 Oilers.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Exactly.
Or
but I mean, like
San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, or the Nashville Predators, or the Boston
Montreal
Bruins.
Canadiens for the bubble year.
I mean, it's right. It happened, because it takes so much out of you, and then to come up short. I mean, I don't know. But
look, man, Edmonton, they did Western Conference Finals.
By the way, the LA Kings in 1993, just for that.
Yes, we're not going that far back.
No.
It's ancient history.
Yeah.
But look, Edmonton, Western Conference Finals, lost to Colorado, was it?
Yes.
Or
no.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So 22, they went to the Western Conference Final.
Yeah, 23, Colorado won it in 22, right? Yeah.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
And then they lost to Vegas in 23, and then they went to the final. So all three times, the team that beat them won the cup.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then you throw in both and then you throw in all the extra hockey that they played along the way, right? Like McDavid's played a little bit outside. They played in the World. I mean, it adds up, man. It adds up. They've probably played a full season's worth or more hockey at this point over the last 3-4 years. I get it. There's a mental aspect to this of getting back up again and being like, man, we got to go through this again. We got to go through this gauntlet one more time.
So I want to add another wrinkle to the playoff conversation, because I don't think it's responsible of me to do it in future episodes that'll be leading directly into the playoffs. So I'm going to do it right here. Part of me thinks that the fact that I won't be able to participate in the full way that I would like to, it means that I will be punished by a deep playoff run just to mess with me. But also, how many times in history have we seen teams? Washington's the one that pops into my mind as the most obvious. Who did Washington win on their run to the Cup? They beat Pittsburgh, New York, and was it some
Tampa.
other team? Okay, okay, right. So they beat their villains.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the Kings go up against Edmonton in the first round, that's obviously their primary villain of the moment and of the last however many years, right? Then I probably round 2 is Vegas, who they lost to in 2018, and obviously everybody hates Vegas. And then in theory, it would be possible to wind up facing Colorado if they make it that far into the Western Conference Finals. And for those who remember, Colorado eliminated them 2 years in a row in 2001 and 2002, both times in 7 games. I'm just saying, it lines up for a real nice narrative.
2014 vibes, Jesse.
And and it also would screw me personally. And there's just a part of my brain that's like, well, that's
reward you, depending on
because I wouldn't. I mean, I don't listen. I don't know how the chemo's going to go, but it's going to get gnarly at some point. So I don't know. There's just that. There's the part of me, like I've said it a million times. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in fate or karma or astrology or any of that stuff, unless we're talking about hockey. and then it's all real. It's all 100% real.
Were you not with the Kings in 2014 yet?
No, that was the last year that I was not with the Kings.
Okay. I'm okay.
Yeah, which is why I was able to do podcast episodes from the parking lot of the Honda Center.
Good times.
With heavily inebriated. Yeah.
Vintage
yeah, those
stuff.
those were, and why I was able to go on a 2-minute long profanity filled rant about the New York Rangers and how much
amazing that audition
exhausted
tape got you this
by. Yeah, well, I mean, I've gone back. Those episodes exist in my archives. They're not available online, but I've gone back and listened to that rant about the New York Rangers and how unhappy I am about having to hear about. I think they lost. They lost game 2 or something?
Yes.
Or no, they lost game 4.
The Kings, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost game 4 in New York.
Right. And I was like, come on, man. Like, I gotta listen to people talk about New York for 2 more days. Like, really? And I snapped and I went off for about 90 seconds. That was pretty impressive stuff, if I do say so myself. But yeah, all of that.
Please share in the future. Just throw us a quick link.
I mean, I'll. Did I send you guys the clip of the meeting I had with my doctor where they told me that I?
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah,
sure did.
So, yeah. I'll dig out that clip of me going.
Please,
off on New York.
You know, it's funny. Like, I want to say it was a year ago. I started going back on your episodes. I was trying to see how far back I could go.
Yeah,
and obviously the cutoff is the date you kind of mentioned. So
yeah, the wildest ones to go back and listen to are 2007.
Is this like early? Like,
yeah. And of course, it's 2007, so I can't believe I'm about to say this. I sound almost 20 years younger. The polish is obviously not there, but the cadence is the same. It's wild. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, I've held you guys long enough. Thank you for joining me, Bannermen. For those of you who are not aware, you should go listen to the Bannermen podcast. It is, although I've started yelling at you guys more and more lately, historically, I think yells per second, you guys are the lowest.
Yells per 60?
Yes, exactly. In the Kings. And now, because I know you guys, I don't have to yell. I can just text you in all caps. Say, what the hell are you talking about? But thank you both. You've been incredible in this health journey that I've been on, and I'm proud to call you both my friends. And I appreciate you. So thank you.
We love you, buddy.
Anytime, man. Love you, dude.